successful in the 21st century.
Being open is really important because it comes with a lot of trust.
The open source community now has matured so much, and that contribution from the community is really driving innovation.
But what's really exciting is the change that we've seen in our teams. Not only the way they collaborate, but the way they operate and the way they work.
I think idea is everything. Ideas can change the way you see things.
Open source is more than a license. It's actually a way of operating.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Red Hat President and Chief Executive Officer, Jim Whitehurst.
All right. Well, welcome to day 2 of the Red Hat Summit. I'm amazed to see this many people here at 8:30 in the morning, given the number of people I saw pretty late last night out and about. So thank you for being here. And I have to give a shout out, speaking of power of participation, that DJ was Mike Walker, who is our Global Director of Open Innovation Labs. So really enjoyed that this morning. It was great to have him doing that. So hey, day 1 yesterday, we had some phenomenal announcements, both around Red Hat products and things that we're doing, as well as some great partner announcements, which we found exciting. I hope they were interesting to you, and I hope you had a chance to learn a little more about that and enjoy the breakout sessions that we had yesterday. So yesterday was a lot about the what with these announcements and partnerships. Today, I wanted to spend this morning talking a little bit more about the how, right? How do we actually survive and thrive in this digitally transformed world? And to some extent, the easy part's identifying the problem. We all know that we have to be able to move more quickly. We all know that we have to be able to react to change faster. And we all know that we need to innovate more effectively, right? So the problem's easy, but how do you actually go about solving that? Right, the problem is that's not a product that you can buy off the shelf, right? It is a capability that you have to build, and certainly it's technology enabled, but it's also depends on process, culture, a whole bunch of things to figure out how we actually do that. And the answer is likely to be different in different organizations with different objective functions and different starting points, right? So this is a challenge that we all need to feel our way to an answer on. And so I want to spend some time today talking about what we've seen in the market and how people are working to address that. And it's one of the reasons that the summit this year, the theme is Ideas Worth Exploring. To take us back on a little history lesson, so 2 years ago here at Moscone, the theme of the summit was the power of participation. And then I talked a lot about the power of groups of people working together and participating are able to solve problems much more quickly and much more effectively than individuals or even individual organizations working by themselves. And some of the largest problems that we face in technology, but more broadly in the world, will ultimately only be solved if we effectively participate and work together. Then last year, the theme of the summit was the impact of the individual. And we took this concept of participation a bit further, and we talked about how participation has to be active, right? This isn't something where you can be passive, that you can sit back. You have to be involved. Because the problem in a more participative type community is that there is no roadmap, right? You can't sit back and wait for an edict on high or some central planning or some central authority to tell you what to do. You have to take initiative. You have to get involved, right? This is a active participation sport. Now, one of the things that I talked about as part of that was that planning was dead. And it was kind of a key, I think my keynote was actually titled Planning is Dead. And the concept was that in a world that's less knowable, when we're solving problems in a more organic, bottom-up way, our ability to effectively plan into the future is much less than it was in the past. And this idea that you're going to be able to plan for success and then build to it, it really is being replaced by a more bottom-up participative approach. Now, aside from my whole strategic planning team kind of being up in arms saying, what are you saying, planning is dead? I have multiple times had people say to me, well, I get that point, but I still need to prepare for the future. How do I prepare my organization for the future? Isn't that planning? And so I wanted to spend a couple minutes talking in a little more detail about what I meant by that, but importantly, taking our own advice. We spent a lot of time this past year looking around at what our customers are doing, because what a better place to learn than from large companies and small companies around the world, information technology organizations having to work to solve these problems for their organizations. And so our ability to learn from each other, take the power of participation and individual initiative that people and organizations have taken, there are just so many great learnings this year that I want to get a chance to share. I also thought, rather than listening to me do that, that we could actually highlight some of the people who are doing this. And so I do want to spend about 5 minutes kind of contextualizing what we're going to go through over the next hour or so, and some of the lessons learned. But then we want to share some real-world stories of how organizations are attacking some of these problems under this, how do we be successful in a world of constant change and uncertainty. So just going back a little bit more to last year, talking about planning was dead. When I said planning, it's kind of a planning writ large. And so that's, if you think about the way traditional organizations work to solve problems and ultimately execute, you start off planning. So what's a position you want to get to in X years? And whether that's a competitive strategy and a position of competitive advantage or a certain position you want an organizational function to reach, you kind of lay out a plan to get there. You then, typically a senior leaders or planning team, prescribes the sets of activities and the organization structure and the other components required to get there. And then ultimately execution is about driving compliance against that plan. And you look at that and you say, well, that's all logical, right? We plan for something, we then figure out how we're going to get there, and we go execute to get there. And you know, in a traditional world, that was easy, and still some of this makes sense. I don't want to say throw out all of this, but you have to recognize in a more uncertain, volatile world where you can be blindsided by orthogonal competitors coming in, and you have the term Uberized. You have to recognize that you can't always plan or know what the future is. And so if you don't, well, then what replaces the traditional model, or certainly how do you augment the traditional model to be successful in a world that you know is ambiguous? Well, what we've heard from customers, and you'll see examples of this through the course of this morning, planning can be replaced by configuring. So you can configure for a constant rate of change without necessarily having to know what that change is. This idea of prescription of here's the activities people need to perform and let's lay these out very, very crisply, job descriptions, what organizations are going to do, can be replaced by a greater degree of enablement. Right? So this idea of how do you enable people with the knowledge and things that they need to be able to make the right decisions. And then ultimately, this idea of execution as compliance can be replaced by a greater level of engagement of people across the organization to ultimately be able to react at a faster speed to the changes that happen. So just double clicking in each of those for a couple minutes. So what do I mean by configure for constant change? So again, we don't know exactly what the change is going to be, but we know it's going to happen. And last year, I talked a little bit about a process solution to that problem. I called it that you have to try, learn, modify. And what that model of try, learn, modify was for anybody in the app dev space, it was basically taking the principles of Agile and DevOps and applying those more broadly to business processes and technology organizations, and ultimately organizations broadly. This idea of you don't have to know what your ultimate destination is, but you can try and experiment, you can learn from those things, and you can move forward. And so that, I do think, in technology organizations, we've seen tremendous progress even over the last year as organizations are adopting Agile and DevOps. And so that still continues to be, I think, a great way for people to configure their processes for change. But this year, we've seen some great examples of organizations taking a different tack to that problem. And that's literally building modularity into their structures themselves, right? Actually building the idea that change is going to happen into how you're laying out your technology architectures, right? We've all seen the reverse of that when you build these optimized systems for, kind of one environment. You kind of flip over 2 years later, what was the optimized system is now called a legacy system that needs to be migrated. That's an optimized system that now has to be moved to a new environment because the world has changed. So again, you'll see a great example of that in a few minutes here on stage. Next, this concept of enable, double-clicking on that a little bit. So much of what we've done in technology over the past few years has been around automation. How do we actually replace things that people were doing with technology, or augmenting what people are doing with technology? And that's incredibly important, and that's work that can continue to go forward and needs to happen. It's not really what I'm talking about here, though. Enablement in this case is much more around how do you make sure individuals are getting the context they need? How are you making sure that they're getting the information they need? How are you making sure they're getting the tools they need to make decisions on the spot? So it's less about automating what people are doing and more about how can you better enable people with tools and technology. Now, from a leadership perspective, that's around making sure people understand the strategy of the company, the context in which they're working in, making sure you've set the appropriate values, et cetera, et cetera. From a technology perspective, that's ensuring that you're building the right systems that allow the right information, the right tools at the right time to the right people. Now, to some extent, even that might not be hard, but when the world's constantly changing, that gets to be even harder. And I think that's one of the reasons we see a lot of traction in open source to solve these problems, to use flexible systems to help enterprises be able to enable their people, not just today, but to be flexible going forward. And again, we'll see some great examples of that. And finally, engagement. So again, if execution can't be around driving compliance to a plan because you no longer have this kind of crisp plan, well, what do leaders do? How do organizations operate? And so, I'll broadly use the term engagement. Several of our customers have used this term. And this is really saying, well, how do you engage your people in real time to make the right decisions? How do you accelerate a pace of cadence? How do you operate at a different speed so you can react to change and take advantage of opportunities as they arise? And everywhere we look, IT is a key enabler of this, right? In the past, IT was often seen as an inhibitor to this because the IT systems move slower than the business might want to move. But we are seeing with some of these new technologies that literally IT is becoming the enabler and driving the pace of change back onto the business. And you'll again see some great examples of that as well. So again, rather than listen to me sit here and theoretically talk about these things or refer to what we've seen others doing, I thought it would be much more interesting to bring some of our partners and our customers up here to specifically talk about what they're doing. So I'm really excited to have a great group of customers who have agreed to stand in front of 7,500 people or however many are here this morning and talk a little bit more about what they're doing. So really am excited to have them here and really appreciate all of them agreeing to be a part of this. And so to start, I want to start with T-Systems. We have the CEO of T-Systems here. And I think this is a great story because there are really two parts to it, right? Because he has two perspectives. One is as the CEO of a global company itself having to navigate its way through digital disruption, and as a global cloud service provider, obviously helping its customers through this same type of change. So I'm really thrilled to have Adel Asali join me on stage to talk a little bit about T-Systems and what they're doing and what we're doing jointly together. So Adel?
Jim, good to see you.
Adel, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Please, join me.
I love the DJ.
Wasn't that fantastic?
We may have to hire him.
No.
For events.
He's well employed. He's well employed, no. Hear that, team? Do not give him Mike's contact information.
Yeah. Hide him.
No, it's great to have you here. I really do appreciate it. Look, you're the CEO of a large organization that's going through this disruption in the same way we are. I'd love to hear a little bit how, for your company, you're thinking about navigating this change that we're going through.
Great. Well, T-Systems, as an ICT service provider, we've been around for decades. And not different to many of our clients, we had to change. The whole disruption of the cloud and digitization and new skills and new capability and agility, it's something we had to face as well. So over the last 5 years, and especially in the last 3 years, we invested heavily. We invested over €1 billion in building new capabilities, building new offerings, new infrastructures to support our clients. So it's been very disruptive for us as well.
And then with your customers themselves, they're going through this set of change and you're working to help them. How are you working to help enable your customers as they're going through this change?
Well, all of them, on this journey of changing the way they run their business, leveraging IT much more to drive business results, digitization, and they're all looking for new skills, new ideas. They're looking for platforms that take them away from traditional waterfall development that takes a year or a year and a half before they see any results to processes and ways of bringing applications in a week, in a month, etc. So we are part of that journey with them, helping them through that.
And speaking of that, I know we're working together to help our joint customers with that. Can you talk a little bit more about what we're doing together?
Sure. Well, our relationship goes back years and years with the enterprise Linux server. But over the last few years, we've invested heavily in OpenShift and OpenStack to build PaaS layers, to build flexible infrastructure for our clients. And we've been working with you. We tested many different technology in the marketplace and been more successful with Red Hat and the stack there. And I'll give you an example. Several large European car manufacturers who have connected cars now as a given have been accelerating the applications that needed to be in the car. And in the past, it took them years, if not quarters, to get an application into the car. And today, we're using OpenShift as the PaaS layer to enable these DevOps for these companies. And they bring applications in less than a month. And it's a huge change in the dynamics of the competitiveness in the marketplace. And we rely on your team in helping us drive that capability to our clients.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating. So many of the stories that you hear and that we've talked about with our customers is this need for speed and this ability to accelerate and enable a greater degree of innovation by simply accelerating what we're seeing with our customers.
Absolutely. That plus, speed is important, agility is really critical, but doing it securely, doing it in a way that is not going to destabilize the broader ecosystem is really critical. And things like GDPR, which is a new security standard in Europe, is something that a lot of our customers worry about. They need help with, and we're one of the partners that know what it really is all about and how to navigate within that and not prevent them from using the new technologies.
Yeah, I will say it isn't just the speed of the external, but the security and the regulation, especially GDPR. Critical. We have spent an hour on that with our board this week.
There you go.
Right, good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate the work that we're doing together and look forward to continued success.
Same here, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a great partnership with T-Systems over the years, and we've really taken it to the next level. And what's really exciting about that is, we've moved beyond just helping kind of host systems for our customers. We really are jointly enabling their success, and it's really exciting, and we're really excited about what we're able to jointly accomplish. So next, I'm really excited that we have our Innovation Award winners here, and we'll have on stage with us. Our Innovation Award winners this year are BBVA, D&M, IAG, Lufthansa Technik, and UPS. And they're all working in one for specific technology initiatives that they're doing that really, really stand out and are really, really exciting. You'll have a chance to learn a lot more about those through the course of the event over the next couple of days. But in this context, what I found fascinating is they were each addressing a different point of this configure, enable, engage. And I thought it would be really great for you all to hear about how they're experimenting and working to solve these problems, real-time, large organizations, happening now. Let's start with the video to see what they think about when they think about innovation.
I define innovation as something that's changing the model, changing the way of thinking. Not just a step change improvement, not just making something better, but actually taking a look at what already exists and then putting them together in new and exciting ways.
Innovation is about to build something nobody has done before.
Historically, we had a statement that business drives technology. We've flipped that equation around, and IT is now demonstrating to the business the power of technology innovation.
Desde el punto de vista de la tecnología, supone salir de plataformas propietarias e ir a un modelo cloud basado en open source.
Esa posibilidad de open source que nos permite no ser como en la antigüedad.
For me, open source stands for flexibility, speed, security, a community.
And that contribution from the community is really driving innovation. Innovation at a pace that I don't think one individual organization could actually do ourselves.
All right, so first I'd like to talk with BBVA. I love this story because, as you know, financial services is going through a massive set of transformations. And BBVA really is at the leading edge of thinking about how to deploy a hybrid cloud strategy and kind of modular layered architecture to be successful regardless of what happens in the future. So with that, I'd like to welcome on stage Jose Maria Rosetta from BBVA. Thank you for being here, and congratulations on your Innovation Award.
It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
It's great to have you.
Hi, everybody.
So Jose Maria, for those who might not be familiar with BBVA, can you give us a little bit of background on your company?
Yeah, brief description. BBVA is a bank, it's a financial institution with a diversified business model, and that provides financial services to more than 73 million of customers in more than 30 countries.
Great, and I know we've worked with you for a long time, so we appreciate the partnership with you. So I thought I'd start with a really easy question for you. How will blockchain impact financial services in the next 5 years?
I've got no idea, but if someone knows the answer, I've got a job for him, a pretty good job indeed,
All right, well, let me go a little easier then. So how will the global payments industry change in the next 4 or 5 years?
5 years. Well, I think you need a wizard. Well, I try to make my best prediction, and is that in 5 years, just probably, will be 5 years older.
Good answer. I like that. Always abstract up to
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, you hope so. Good point. So, let me ask the obvious question. You have a massive technology infrastructure as a global bank. how do you prepare yourself to enable the organization to be successful when you really don't know what the future is going to be?
Well, global banks and, well, BBVA is a global bank, share some common foundations, you know. Today I would like to talk about risk and efficiency. So, well, banks deal with risk, with market, credit, liquidity, operational, reputational risk, and so on. So risk control is part of our DNA, you know. And when you've got millions of customers, you know, efficiency is a must. So I think there's no problem with all these foundations. The problem arises, the problems appears when banks translate these foundations, these values, into technology. So risk control or risk management, avoid risk usually means buy the most expensive proprietary technology in the market, you know, from one of the biggest software companies in the world, you know, so probably all of you...
There's some of those people in the room who are glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. Probably might guess the name of those companies around San Francisco, most of them. And efficiency usually means as every business unit, as every department or country has his own specific needs, buy a specific solution for them. So imagine yourself working in a data center full of silos with many different hardware, operating systems, different languages, and complex interfaces to communicate among them, you know. Not always documented, well, really never documented, so your life is not easy, you know. In this scenario, well, there's no room for innovation. So what's been our strategy, BBVA strategy, to move forward in this new digital world? Well, we've chosen a different approach, which is quite simple, is to replace all local proprietary system by a global platform based on open source with three main goals. You know, the first one is reduce the average transaction cost to 1/3. The second one is increase our developers' productivity 5 times, you know. And the third is enable our digital business, be able to deliver solutions 3 times faster. So, you know, quite easy.
Wow.
And everything with the same reliability and security standards as we've got today. So,
wow. That is an extraordinary set of objectives. And I will say they're well on the path of making that successful, which is just amazing.
Yeah. Okay, this is a long journey, sometimes a tough journey, you know, to be honest. You know? So we decided to partnership with the best companies in the world. And well, Red Hat, we think Red Hat is one of these companies. So we think your values and your knowledge is critical for BBVA. And well, as I mentioned before, our collaboration started some time ago, you know. And just an example, today in BBVA Spain, being one of the biggest banks in the country, you know, and using Red Hat technology, of course, our front-end architecture, you know, for mobile and internet channels runs the 95% of our customer requests. This is approximately 3,000 requests per second. And our backend architecture executes 70 million of business transactions a day. This is almost the 50% of total online transactions executed in the country. So,
wow. And it's all running.
Yeah, it's running. I hope so.
You checked before you came on stage. It's still
I'll
working.
be fired, you know.
Okay.
So.
Good. There's no wood up here to knock on.
Yeah.
It's been a really great partnership. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring the one.
I do love that story because, again, so much of what we talk about when we talk about preparing for digital is a process solution, and again, things like Agile and DevOps and modularizing components of work. But this idea of thinking about platforms broadly and how they can run anywhere and actually delivering it at scale, it's just a phenomenal project and experience and the progress they've made. It's a great team. So next up, we have two organizations that have done an exceptional job of enabling their people with the right information and the tools they need to be successful. You know, in both of these cases, these are organizations who are under constant change. And so leveraging the power of open source to help them build these tools to enable, and you'll see at the size and the scale of these in two very, very different contexts. It's great to see. And so I'd like to welcome on stage Osmar Alza with D&M and David Abrahams with IAG. Osmar, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Dave, great to see you. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. And congratulations to you both on winning the Innovation Awards.
Thank you.
So, Osmar, I really found your story fascinating and how you're able to enable your people with data, which has just significantly accelerated the pace with which they can make decisions and accelerated your ability to act. Could you tell us a little more about the project and what you're doing?
Jim, antes que nada, buen día y muchísimas gracias por haberse interesado por nuestro proyecto. La Dirección Nacional de Migraciones es la encargada de registrar y controlar las entradas y salidas de las personas por la frontera argentina y lo hace a través de 237 puestos de control que tiene a lo largo de la frontera, tanto aérea, terrestre, marítima y fluvial. En el último año, Jim, 80 millones de tránsitos se registraron en nuestras fronteras. Para que tengas idea, o el auditorio tenga idea de la magnitud de la cual estamos hablando, la frontera argentina tiene una extensión de 15.000 kilómetros. Esto es holgadamente mayor a la distancia que une por carretera a la Ciudad de México con Alaska. La Dirección de Migraciones también otorga los permisos de residencia y controla la permanencia de los extranjeros en la Argentina. Pero básicamente nuestra tarea es prevenir que personas que estén incurriendo en delito transnacional tipo terrorismo, trata de personas, tráfico de armas, son delitos muy graves, ¿sí? Y lo que nosotros hacemos es prevenir a que eso no ocurra, que nadie que esté inmerso en esos ámbitos puedan entrar a la Argentina y establecerse. Nuestra principal tarea entonces, ¿cuál es? Es generar y aplicar mecanismos para que esto no ocurra. En el año 2016, a partir del año 2016, tuvimos la firme decisión de cambiar de un sistema reactivo forense, ¿sí?, a un sistema predictivo, ¿sí?, preventivo. Y es ahí donde empezamos esta ardua tarea con la ayuda inapreciable de la gente de Red Hat. La ardua tarea, el desafío era integrar todas las bases de conocimientos, bases de datos propias, estructuradas, no estructuradas, propias del organismo y de otros organismos del Estado, y también integrarlas con el mundo, ¿sí? Es así como se integró los controles de Interpol, o empezamos a tener información anticipada de los pasajeros a través del sistema API. También intentamos controlar la trazabilidad en los aviones a través de PNR. Todo esto fue posible a través de la generación de una red privada con OpenShift y la virtualización de datos, ¿sí? Esto fue fundamental porque entramos en un esquema, ¿sí?, en un modelo de inteligencia artificial y de machine learning. ¿Qué dio por resultado, Jim, esto? Que todas esas bases de datos integradas, tanto nacionales como internacionales, le proveyeran a nuestros analistas que antes del 2016 tenían que buscar esa información, integrarla de diferentes sistemas, ¿sí? Y hasta de archivos manuales, tardando horas o días en algunos casos, a tener toda la información consolidada e integrada por pasajero en tiempo real. Esto que hizo mejoró el tiempo y la calidad de la toma de decisiones de nuestros agentes. Pero bueno, en definitiva, Jim, de lo que se trata esto es simplemente de mejorar la calidad de vida de nuestras personas, ¿sí? Y evitar que el delito perfore nuestras fronteras. Argentina sigue siendo, en favor de estos sistemas, uno de los países más abiertos a la inmigración en Latinoamérica y ahora con una plataforma más segura.
Jim, first of all, I want to thank you for the interest displayed for our project. The National Migration Administration, or DNM, records the entry and exit of people on the Argentine territory. It grants residence permits to foreigners who wish to live in our country through 237 entry points: land, air, border, sea, and riverways. Jim, DNM registered over 80 million transits throughout last year. Argentine borders cover about 15,000 kilometers. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of our borders, this is greater than the distance on a highway between Mexico City and Alaska. Our department applies the mechanisms that prevent the entry and residence of people involved in crimes like terrorism, trafficking of persons, weapons, drugs, and others. In 2016, we shifted to a more preventive and predictive paradigm. That is how SAMS, the System for Migration Analysis, was created, with Red Hat's great assistance and support. This allowed us to tackle the challenge of integrating multiple and varied issues, legal issues, police databases, national and international security organizations like Interpol, API, Advanced Passenger Information, and PNR, Passenger Name Record. This involved starting a private cloud with OpenShift, Rev, data virtualization, CloudForms, and Fuse that were the basis to develop SAM, and implementing machine learning models and artificial intelligence. Our analysts consulted a number of systems and other manual files before 2016 for days for each person entering or leaving the country. So this has allowed us to optimize our decisions, making them in real time. Each time SAM is consulted, it processes patterns of over 2 billion data entries. SAM's aim is to improve the quality of life of our citizens and visitors, making sure that crime doesn't pierce our borders in an environment of analytic evolution and constant improvement. In essence, SAM contributes toward Argentina being one of the leaders in Latin America in terms of immigration with our new system.
Great, thank you. And so Dave, tell us a little more about the insurance industry and the challenges that you face.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, in the insurance industry, it's been a bit sort of insulated from a lot of major change and disruption, just purely from the fact that it's highly regulated, and the cost of, the barrier to entry is quite high. In fact, if you think about insurance, you know, you have to have capital reserves to protect against those major events like floods, bushfires, and so on. But what we're seeing is a lot of change that's coming at a really rapid pace, more so in the areas of customer expectations. You know, customers are now looking and expecting for the same levels of flexibility and convenience that they would experience with more modern and new startups. They're expecting that of the older institutions like banks and insurance companies like us. So definitely expecting the industry to be a lot more adaptable and to better meet their needs, I think. The other aspect of it really is in the data area, where I think that the data is now creating a much more significant connection between organizations and their customers, especially when you think about the level of devices that are now enabled and the sheer growth of data that's growing at exponential rates. So, so that the impact then is that the systems that we used to rely on and the technology we used to rely on to be able to handle that kind of growth no longer keeps up and is able to build for the future. So we need to sort of change that. So what IAG is really doing is transforming the organisation to become a lot more efficient, focus more on customers, and really set ourselves up to be agile and adaptive.
And so, yeah, and I know as part of your Innovation Award, the specific set of projects, you tied a huge amount of different disparate systems together, and with M&A and other, you have a lot to do there. Can you tell us a little more about kind of how you're able to better respond to customer needs by being able to do that?
Yeah, no, you're right. So we're a nearly 100-year-old company that's grown from lots of merger and acquisition. And just as a result of that, that means that data's been sort of spread out and fragmented across multiple brands and multiple products. And so the number one sort of issue and problem that we were hearing was that it was too hard to get access to data and it was highly complicated, which is not great from a company, from our perspective really, because we are a data company, right? That's what we do. We collect data about people, what's important to them, what they value, and the environment in which they live so that we can understand that risk and better manage and protect those people. So what we're doing is we're trying to make, and what we have been doing is making data more open and accessible. And by that I mean making data more easily available for people to use it to make decisions in their day-to-day activity. And to do that, what we've done is built a single data platform across the group that unifies the data into a single source of truth, that we can then build on top of that single views of customers, for example, that puts the right information into the hands of the people that need it the most.
And so now, why does open source play such a big part in doing that? I know there are a lot of different solutions that could get you there. Sure.
Well, firstly, I think open source has been key to this. And really it's been key because we've basically started from scratch to build this new next generation data platform based on entirely open source. Using great components like Kafka and Postgres and Airflow and then fundamentally building that on top of Red Hat Open Stack, right, to power all that and to give us the flexibility that we need to be able to make things happen much faster. For example, we were just talking to the Pivotal guys earlier this week here, and some of the stuff that we're doing there, they think is quite innovative, right? It's even sort of maybe first in the world where we've taken the older sort of appliance and dedicated sort of massive parallel processing unit and ported that over onto Red Hat OpenStack, right? Which has now given us a lot more flexibility for scale in a much more efficient way. But you're right though that we've come from, in the past, a more traditional approach to using vendor-based technology, right? Which was good back then when technology solutions could last for around 10 years or so, and that was fine. But now that we need to move much faster, we've had to rethink that, and so our focus has been on using more commoditized open source technology built by communities to give us that adaptability and to sort of remove the lock-in and the entrenchment of technology. So that's really helped us. But I think that the last point that's been really critical to us is answering that concern and question about ongoing support and maintenance, right? So in a regulated environment, the regulator is really concerned about anything that could fundamentally impact business operation. And so the question is always about what happens when something goes wrong. Who's going to be there to support you? Which is where the value of the partnership we have with Red Hat has really come into its own, right? And what it's done is it's actually given us the best of both worlds. It means that we can leverage and use and take some of the technology that's being developed by great communities in the open source way, but also partner with a trusted partner in Red Hat to say, they're going to stand behind that community and provide that support when we need it the most. So that's been the kind of the real value out of that partnership.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate it. I love the story. It's how do you move quickly, leverage the power of community, but do it in a safe, secure way. Yeah. And I love the idea of you're literally empowering people with machine learning and AI at the moment when they need it. It's just an incredible story. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
again, you see in these the importance of enabling people with data. And in an old world where so much data was created with a system in mind versus data as a separate asset that needs to be available real time to anyone is a theme we hear over and over and over again. And so, really looking at open source solutions that allow that flexibility and keep data from getting locked into proprietary silos, is a theme that I've heard over and over the past year with many of our customers. So I love logistics. I'm a geek that way. I come from that background in the past. And I know that running large, complex operations requires flawless execution, and that requires great data. And we have two great examples today around how to engage organizations in new and more effective ways. In the case of Lufthansa Technik, literally IT became the business. So it wasn't enabling the business, it became the business offering. And importantly, went from idea to delivery to customers in 100 days. And so this theme of speed and the importance of speed, it's a great story you'll hear more about. And then also at UPS, UPS, again, I talked a little earlier about IT used to be kind of the long pole in the tent, the thing that was slow moving because of the technology. But UPS is showing that IT can actually drive the business and the cadence of business even faster by demonstrating the power and potential of technology to engage, in this case, hundreds of thousands of people to make decisions real time in the face of obviously constant change around weather, mechanicals, and all the different things that can happen in a large logistics operation like that. So I'd like to welcome on stage Tobias Moore from Lufthansa Technik and Nick Kastidis from UPS. Tobias, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Nick, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
And congratulations on your Innovation Awards.
Oh, thank you. It's a great honor.
So Tobias, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Aviatar is?
Yeah, Aviatar is our digital platform offering features like aircraft condition analytics, reliability management, and predictive maintenance. And it helps airlines worldwide to digitize and improve their operations. So all of the features work and can be used separately, but generate even more value when combined. And finally, we decided to set up Aviatar as an open platform. That means that we invite the whole aviation industry to join the community and develop ideas in our platform.
And Tobias, one of the things I found really fascinating about this is that you had a mandate to do this in 100 days and you ultimately delivered on it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, nothing in aviation moves that fast.
Yeah, that's been a big challenge. So in the beginning of our story, the Lufthansa board asked us to develop somehow a digital twin of an aircraft within just 100 days. And to deliver something of value within 100 days means you cannot spend much time in producing specifications in tons of paper, etc. So for us, it was pretty clear that we should go for an agile approach and immediately start in developing ideas. So we put the best experts we know just in one room and let them start to work. And on day 2, I think we already had the first scribbles for the UI. On day 5, we wrote the first lines of code. And we were able to do that because it has been a major advantage for us to already have a technology stack in place. It's based on open source and especially Red Hat solutions, because we did not have to waste any time by setting up the infrastructure. And since we wanted to get feedback very fast, we visited an airline from the Lufthansa group already on day 30 and showed them the first results and got a lot of feedback. And because from the very beginning, customer centricity has been an important aspect for us, and changing the direction based on customer feedback has become quite normal for us over time.
Yeah, it's fun. An interesting story, not only engaging with people internally, but being able to engage with a launch customer like that and get feedback along the way is a great thing. How is it going overall since launch?
Yeah, since the launch last year in April, we generated much interest in the industry, as well from airlines as from competitors. And in the following month, we focused on a few airlines which had been open-minded and already advanced in digital activities. And we got a lot of feedback by working with them, and we're able to improve our products by developing new features. For example, we learned that data integration can become quite complex in the industry, and therefore we developed a new feature called quick boarding, allowing airlines to integrate into the Aviator platform within 1 day using a self-service. So and currently we're heading for the next steps beyond predictive maintenance, working on process automation and prescriptive maintenance, because we believe prediction without fulfillment still isn't enough.
And it really is a great example of, even once you're out there quickly, continuing to innovate, change, react. It's great to see. So Nick, I mean, we all know UPS. I'm still always blown away by the size and scale of the company and the logistics operations that you run. Can you tell us a little more about the project and what we're doing together?
Yeah, sure, Jim. And first of all, I think I didn't get the sport coat memo. I think I'm the first one up here today with a sport coat. But first, on behalf of the 430,000 UPSers around the world and our just world-class talented team of 5,000 IT professionals, I have to tell you, we're humbled to be one of this year's Red Hat Innovation Award recipients. So we really appreciate that. As a global logistics provider, we deliver about 20 million packages each day. And we've got a portfolio of technologies, both operational and customer tech, and on the customer-facing side, that power what we call the UPS Smart Logistics Network. And I got to tell you, innovation's in our DNA. Technology is at the core of everything we do. From the ever-familiar first-in-industry mobile platform that a lot of you see when you get delivered a package, which we call the Dyad, which, believe it or not, we delivered in 1990, to MyChoice, a data-driven solution that drives over 40 million of our MyChoice customers.
I'm one of them.
You know what? This is great. He loves logistics. He's a MyChoice customer. You could be one too, by the way. There's a free app in the App Store. But it provides unmatched visibility and really controls that last mile delivery experience. So now today we're going to talk about the solution that we're recognized for, which is called SIPE, which is part of a much greater platform that we call Edge, which is transforming how our package delivery teams operate, providing them real-time insights into our operations. This allows them to make decisions based on data from 32 disparate data sources, and these insights help us to optimize our operations, but more importantly, they help us improve the delivery experience for our customers, just like you, Jim. Right. On the back end is big data, and it's on a large scale. Our systems are crunching billions of events to render those insights on an easy-to-use mobile platform in real time. I got to tell you, placing that information in our operators' hands makes UPS agile. And being agile, being able to react to changing conditions, as you know, is the name of the game in logistics. Now, we built Edge in our private cloud, where Red Hat technologies play a very important role as part of our overarching cloud strategy and our migration to Agile and DevOps.
So it's amazing, and it's amazing the size and scale. So you have this technology vision around engaging people in a more effective way. Those are my words, right. not yours, but I mean, that's how it certainly feels. And so tell us a little more about how that enables the hundreds of thousands of people to make better decisions every day.
Yep. So, we're a people company, and the Edge platform is really the latest in a series of solutions to really empower our people and really power that smart logistics network. We've been deploying technology, believe it or not, since we founded the company in 1907. We'll be 111 years old this August. It's just a phenomenal story. Now, prior to Edge, and specifically the SIPE initiative, our operators had to pull information from a number of disparate systems and reports. They then need to manually look across these various data sources. And frankly, it was inefficient and prone to inaccuracy, and it wasn't really real time at all. Now, Edge consumes data, as I mentioned earlier, from 32 disparate systems. It allows our operators to make decisions on staffing, equipment, the flow of packages through the buildings in real time. The ability to give our people on the ground the most up-to-date data allows them to make informed decisions. Now that's incredibly empowering because not only are they influencing their local operations, but frankly, they're influencing the entire global network.
It's truly extraordinary. And so why open source and OpenShift in particular as part of that solution?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Red Hat and Red Hat technology, specifically OpenShift, is really core to our cloud strategy and to our DevOps strategy. The tools and environments that we've partnered with Red Hat to put in place truly are foundational, and they've fundamentally changed the way we develop and deploy our systems. I heard Jose talk earlier, we had complex solutions that used to take 12 to 18 months to develop and deliver to market. Today, we deliver those same solutions, same level of complexity, in months and in even weeks. Now, OpenShift enables us to containerize our workloads that run in our private cloud during normal operating periods. But as we scale our business during our holiday peak season, which is a very short window, about 5 weeks during the year, last year, as a matter of fact, we delivered 762 million packages in that small window. And our transactions, our systems, they just spike dramatically during that period. We think that having OpenShift will allow us in those peak periods to seamlessly move workloads to the public cloud so we can take advantage of burst capacity economically when needed. And I have to tell you, having this flexibility, I think, is key, because ultimately it's going to allow us to react quickly to customer demands when needed, dial back capacity when we don't need that capacity. And I have to tell you, it's a really great story of UPS and Red Hat working together.
It really is a great story. It's just amazing, again, the size and scope. Both stories here, a lot speed, getting to market quickly, being able to try things. It's great lessons learned for all of us, the importance of being able to operate at a fundamentally different clock speed. So thank you all for being here. Very much appreciate it. Congratulations again, Nick. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, so it's great to hear from our Innovation Award winners, and it should be no surprise that they're leading and experimenting in some really interesting areas at scale. So I hope that you got a chance to learn something from these interviews. You'll have an opportunity to learn more about them. You'll also have an opportunity to vote on the Innovator of the Year. You can do that on the Red Hat Summit mobile app or on the Red Hat Innovation Awards homepage. You can learn even more about their stories, and you'll have a chance to vote. And I'll be back tomorrow to announce the summit winner. So next, I'd like to spend a few minutes on talking about how Red Hat is working to catalyze our customers' efforts. Marco Bill-Peter, our Senior Vice President of Customer Experience and Engagement, and John Alessio, our Vice President of Global Services, will both describe areas in how we are working to configure our own organization to effectively engage with our customers to use open source to help drive their success. So with that, I'd like to welcome Marco on stage.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Jim. So I want to spend a few minutes to talk about how we are configured towards your success, how we enable internally as well to work towards your success and actually engage as well. Paul yesterday talked about the open source culture, now open source development model. There's a lot of attributes that we have, like transparency, meritocracy, collaboration. Those are the key of our culture. They made Red Hat what it is today and what it will be in the future. But we also added our passion for customer success to that. Let me tell you, this is kind of the configuration from a cultural perspective. Let me tell you a little bit on what that means. So you heard the name, my organization is Customer Experience and Engagement, right? In the past, we talked a lot about support. It's an important part of Red Hat, right? And how we are configured probably very uniquely in the industry. We put support together, we have product security in there, we added documentation, we added quality engineering into an organization. You think it's like, wow, why are they doing it? We're also running actually the IT team for actually the product teams. Why are we doing that? Now, you can imagine, right? We want to go through what you see as well, right? And I give you a few examples on what's coming out of this configuration. We invest more and more in testing integration and use cases which you are applying. So you can see it between the support team experiencing a lot what you do and actually changing our test structure, that makes a lot of sense. We are investing more and more testing outside the boundaries, so not exactly how things was thought by product management or engineering, but also how does it really run in an environment that you operate. We run complex setups internally, right? Taking OpenShift, putting in OpenStack, using software-defined storage underneath, managing it with CloudForms, managing it with Insights. We do that. We want to see how that works, right? We are reshaping documentation constantly to kind of help you better instead of just documenting features and knobs, as in how do you want to achieve things. Now, part of this is the configuration. The other big part of the configuration is the voice of the customer, to listen to what you say. I've been here at Red Hat a few years, and one of my passions has always been really hearing from customers how they do it. I travel constantly in the world. I meet with customers because I want to know what is really going on. We use channels like support. We use channels like getting from salespeople, the interaction from customers. We do surveys. We do, we interact with our people to really hear what you do. What we also do, what maybe not many know, and it's also very unique in the industry, we have a web page called You Ask, We Acted. We show very transparently, you told us this is an area for improvement. And it's not just in support, it's across the company, right? Build us a better web store, build us this. We're very transparent about, hey, this is improvements we want to do with you. Now, if you want to be part of the process today, go to the feedback zone on the next floor down and talk to my team. I might be there as well. Hit me up. We want to hear the feedback. This is how we talk about configuration of the organization, how we are configured. Let me go to another part, which is innovation. Innovation every day. And that's, in my opinion, the enable section, right? We gotta constantly innovate ourselves. How do we work with you? How do we actually provide better value? How do we provide faster responses in support? This is what I say is our commitment to innovation, which is the enabling that Jim talked about. And I give you a few examples, which I'm really happy, and it kind of shows the open source culture at Red Hat. Our commitment is for innovation. I'll give you a good example, right? If you have a few thousand engineers and you empower them, you kind of set the business framework as in, hey, this is an area we got to do something. You get a lot of good ideas, or you get a lot of ideas, and you got to shape them into an area that, hey, this is really something that brings. Now, a few years ago, we kind of said, or I said, it's like based on a lot of feedback, is we got to get more and more proactive with you customers. So I shaped my team and I shaped it around how can we be more proactive. It started very simple, as in like from K-based articles or knowledge-based articles in getting started guys. Then we started a tool that we put out called Labs. You've probably seen them if you're on the technical side, really taking small applications out for you to kind of validate, is this configured correctly, is that configured? That was the start. Then out of that, the ideas came and they took different turns. And one of the turns that we came out was Red Hat Insights that we launched a few years ago. And did you see the demo yesterday that in Paul's keynote that they showed how something was broken with one of the data centers, how it was applied to fix and how it's changed? This is how innovation really came from the ground up, from the support side, and turned into something really being a cornerstone of our strategy. And we're keeping it married from the day-to-day work, right? You don't want to separate this. You want to actually keep that the data that's coming from the support goes in that, because that's the power that we saw yesterday in the demo. Now, innovation doesn't stop when you set the challenge. So we did the labs, we did the insights, we just launched a solution engine called SiliconANGLE. Another thing that came out of that challenge is in how do we break complex issues down that it's easier for you to find a solution quicker. It's one example. But we're also experimenting with AI. So Insights uses AI, as you probably heard yesterday. We also use it internally to actually drive faster resolution. We did in one case with an AI bot, basically, that we get to 25% faster resolution on challenges that you have. The beauty for you, obviously, it's, well, this is much faster. 10% of all our support cases today are supported and assisted by an AI. Now, I'll give you another example of just trying to tell you the innovation that comes out if you configure and enable the team correctly. K-base articles or knowledge base articles, we create thousands and thousands every year. And then I get feedback as in, well, they're good, but they're in English. As you can tell, my English is perfect, so it's no issue for that. But for many of you, it's maybe like you want to read it in Japanese. So we actually did machine translation because it's too many that we can do manually. We're using machine translation. I can tell as a funny example, 2 weeks ago I tried it. I tried something from English to German. I looked at it, the German looked really bad. I went back, but the English was bad. So it really translates one-to-one, actually, what it does. But it's really cool. This is innovation that you can apply, and the team actually worked on this, and really proud on that. Now, the real innovation, though, is not these tools. The real innovation is that you can actually shape it in a way that the innovation comes, that you empower the people. That's the configure and enable. And what I think as well is important is don't reinvent the plumbing. Don't start from scratch. Use systems like containers on OpenShift to actually build the innovation in a smaller way without reinventing the plumbing. You save a lot of issues on security, a lot of issues on reinventing the wheel. Focus on that. That's what we do as well. If you want to hear more details, again, go on the second floor. Now, let's talk about the engage that Jim mentioned before. What I translate that engage is actually engaging you as a customer towards your success. Now, what does commitment to success really mean? And I want to reflect on that on a traditional IT company shows up with, you talk to a salesperson, solution architect works with you, consulting implements the solution, it comes over to support, and trust me, in a very traditional way, the support guy has no clue what actually was sold early on. It's what happens, right? And this is actually, I think at Red Hat better that we're not so siloed. We don't show our internal silos or internal organization that much to that. We engage in a way, it doesn't matter from which team it comes. We have a better flow than that. You deserve how the sausage is made, but we can never forget what was your business objective early on. Now, how is Red Hat different in this? And we are very strong, in my opinion, you might disagree, but we are very strong in a virtual account team, right? Really putting you in the middle and actually having a solution architect work directly with support or consulting involved and driving that together. You can also help us in actually really embracing that model if that's also other partners or system integrators integrated. Put yourself in the middle, be around. That's how we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the original business problem. Trust me, reducing the hierarchy or getting rid of hierarchy and bureaucracy goes a long way. Now, this is how we configured, this is how we engage, and this is how we are committed to your success. With that, I want to introduce you to John Alessio that talks more about some of the innovation done with customers. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm John Alessio. I'm the Vice President of Global Services, and I'm delighted to be with you here today. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things as it relates to what we've been doing since the last summit in the services organization. At the core of everything we did, it's very similar to what Marco talked to you about. Our #1 priority is driving our customer success with Red Hat technology. And as you see here on the screen, we have a number of different offerings and capabilities all the way from training, certification, open innovation labs, consulting, really pairing those capabilities together with what you just heard from Marco in the support or CEE organization. Really, that's the journey you all go through from the beginning of discovering what your business challenge is all the way through designing those solutions and deploying them with Red Hat. Now, I'd like to highlight a few things of what we've been up to over the last year. So if I start with the training and certification team, they've been very busy over the last year. really updating, enhancing our curriculum. If you haven't stopped by the booth, there's a preview for new capability around our learning community, which is a new way of learning and really driving that enablement in the community, because 70% of what you need to know you learn from your peers, and so it's a very key part of our learning strategy. And in fact, we take customer satisfaction with our training and certification business very seriously. We survey all of our students coming out of training. 93% of our students tell us they're better prepared because of Red Hat training and certification after they've completed the course. We've updated the courses and we've trained well over 150,000 people over the last 2 years. So it's a very, very key part of our strategy. And that, combined with innovation labs and the consulting operation, really drive that overall journey. Now, we've been equally busy in enhancing the system of enablement and support for our business partners. Another very, very key initiative is building out the ecosystem. We've enhanced our open platform, which is our online partner enablement network. We've added new capability, and in fact, much of the training and enablement that we do for our internal consultants is delivered through the open platform. Now, what I'm really impressed with and thankful for our partners is how they are consuming and leveraging this material. We train and enable for sales, for pre-sales, and for delivery. And we're up over 70% year in year in our partners that are enabled on Red Hat technology. Let's give our business partners a round of applause. Now, one of our offerings, Red Hat Open Innovation Labs, I'd like to talk a bit more about and take you through a case study. Open Innovation Labs was created 2 years ago. It's really there to help you on your journey in adopting open source technology. It's an immersive experience where your team will work side by side with Red Hatters to really propel your journey forward in adopting open source technology. And in fact, we've been very busy since the summit in Boston. As you'll see coming up on the screen, we've completed dozens of engagements leveraging our methods, tools, and processes for Open Innovation Labs. As you can see, we've worked with large and small accounts. In fact, if you remember Summit last year, we had a European customer, Easier AG, on stage, which was a startup. And we worked with them at the very beginning of their business to create capabilities in a very short 4-week engagement. But over the last year, we've also worked with very large customers such as Optum and Delta Airlines here in North America, as well as Motability operations in the European arena. One of the accounts I want to spend a little bit more time on is Heritage Bank. Heritage Bank is a community-owned bank in Toowoomba, Australia. Their challenge was not just on creating new innovative technology, but their challenge was also around cultural transformation. How to get people to work better together across the silos within their organization. We worked with them at all levels of the organization to create a new capability. The first engagement went so well that they asked us to come in and do a second engagement. And so what I'd like to do now is run a video with Peter Locke, the Chief Executive Officer of Heritage Bank, so he can take you through their experience.
Heritage Bank is one of the country's oldest financial institutions. We have to be smarter. We have to be more innovative. We have to be more agile. We had to change. We had to find people to help us make that change.
The Red Hat Lab is the only one that truly helps drive that change with a business problem.
The change within the team is very visible from the start to now. We've gone from being separated to very single goal minded.
Seeing people that I'd only ever seen before in their cubicles, in the room, made me smile. Programmers sitting there thinking, I'm now understanding how the whole process fits together.
The productivity of IT will change, and that is good for our business. That's really the value that we're looking for.
The Red Hat Innovation Labs for us were a really great experience. I'm not interested in running an organisation, I'm interested in making a great organisation. To say I was pleasantly surprised by it is an understatement. I was delighted.
I love the quote. I was delighted. It makes my heart warm every time I see that video. You know, since we were at Summit, for those of you who are with us in Boston, some of you went on our hard hat tours. We've opened 3 physical facilities here at Red Hat where we can conduct Red Hat Open Innovation Lab engagements. Singapore, London, and Boston were all opened within the last physical year. And in fact, our site in Boston is paired with our world-class executive briefing center as well. So if you haven't been there, please do check it out. I'd like to now talk to you a bit about a very special engagement that we just recently completed. We just recently completed an engagement with UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. And the purpose behind this engagement was really to help UNICEF create an open source platform that marries big data with social good. The idea is UNICEF needs to be better prepared to respond to emergency situations. And as you can imagine, emergency situations are by nature unpredictable. You can't really plan for them. They can happen anytime, anywhere. And so we worked with them on a project that we called School Mapping. And the idea was to provide more insights so that when emergency situations arise, UNICEF could do a much better job in helping the children in the region. And so we leveraged our Red Hat Open Innovation Lab methods, tools, processes that you've heard about, just like we did at Heritage Bank and the other accounts I mentioned. But then we also leveraged Red Hat software technologies. So we leveraged OpenShift Container Platform, we leveraged Ansible automation, we helped the client with a more agile development approach so they could have releases much more frequently and continue to update this over time. We created a continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. We worked on containers and containerizing the application, etc. With that, we've been able to provide a platform that is going to allow for their growth to better respond to these emergency situations. Let's watch a short video on UNICEF.
The mission of UNICEF Innovation is to apply technology to the world's most pressing problems facing children. Data is changing the landscape of what we do at UNICEF. This means that we can figure out what's happening now on the ground, who it's happening to, and actually respond to it in much more of a real-time manner than we used to be able to do. We love working with open source communities because of their commitment that we should be doing good for the world. We're actually, with Red Hat, building a sandbox where universities or other researchers or data scientists can connect and help us with our work. If you want to use data for social good, there's so many groups out there that really need your help, and there's so many ways to get involved.
So let's give a very, very warm Red Hat Summit welcome to Erica Kochi, co-founder of UNICEF Innovation.
Thanks, John.
All right. Well, Erica, first of all, welcome to Red Hat Summit.
Thanks for having me here.
It's our pleasure, and thank you for joining us. So Erica, I've just talked a bit about kind of what we've been up to in Red Hat Services over the last year. We've talked a bit about our Open Innovation Labs, and we did this project, the school mapping project together, our 2 teams. And I thought the audience might find it interesting from your point of view on why the approach we use in Innovation Labs was such a good fit for the school mapping project.
Yeah, it was a great fit for 2 reasons. The first is values. Everything that we do at UNICEF Innovation, we use open source technology. And that's for a couple of reasons. Because we can take it from one place and very easily move it to other countries around the world. Yep. We work in 190 countries, so that's really important for us not to be able to scale things. Mm-hmm. Also because it makes sense. We can get more communities involved in this and look, not just try to do everything by ourselves, but look much more openly towards the open source communities out there to help us with our work. We can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is methodology. You know, the labs are really looking at taking this agile approach to prototyping things, trying things, failing, trying again. And that's really necessary when you're developing something new and trying to do something new, like mapping every school in the world.
Yeah, very challenging work. Think about it, 190 countries. Wow. And so the open source platform really works well, and then the rapid prototyping was really a good fit. So I think the audience might find it interesting on how this application and this platform will help children in Latin America.
So in a lot of countries in Latin America, and many countries throughout the world that UNICEF works in, are coming out of either decades of conflict or are subject to natural disasters and not great infrastructure. So it's really important for us to know where schools are, where communities are, where help is needed, what's connected, what's not. Yep. And using an overlay of various sources of data, from poverty mapping to satellite imagery to other sources, we can really figure out what's happening, where resources are, where they aren't, and so we can plan better to respond to emergencies and to really invest in areas that are needed, that need that investment.
Excellent, excellent. It's quite powerful what we were able to do in a relatively short 8 or 9 week engagement that our two teams did together. Now, many of your colleagues in the audience are using open source today, looking to expand their use of open source. And I thought you might have some recommendations for them on how they kind of go through that journey on expanding their use of open source, since your experience at that.
Yeah, for us, it was very much based on what's this going to cost? We have limited resources, and how is this going to spread as quickly as possible? And so we really asked ourselves those two questions, about 10 years ago. And what we realized is if we are going to be recommending technologies that governments are going to be using, it really needs to be open source. They need to have control over it.
Yep.
And they need to be working with communities, not developing it themselves.
Yep. Excellent, excellent. So I got really inspired with what we were doing here in this project. It's one of those, every customer project is really interesting to me. This one kind of pulls a little bit at your heartstrings on what the real impact could be here. And so I know some of our colleagues here in the audience may want to get involved. How can they get involved?
Well, there's many ways to get involved with either UNICEF or other groups out there. You can search for our work on GitHub, and there are tasks that you can do right now. If you're looking for so
if you're looking for work to do, she's got work for you.
And if you want sort of a longer engagement or a bigger engagement, you can check out our website, unicefstories.org. And you can look at the areas you might be interested in and contact us. We're always open to collaboration.
Excellent. Well, Erica, thank you for being with us here today. Thank you for the great project we worked on together, and have a great summit. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Thanks.
All right, well, I hope that's been helpful to you to give you a bit of an update on what we've been focused on in global services. The message I'll leave with you is our top priority is customer success. As you heard through the story from UNICEF, from Heritage Bank, and others, we can help you innovate where you are today. I hope you have a great summit, and I'll call out Jim Whitehurst.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Erica. That's really an inspiring story. We have so many great examples of how individuals and organizations are stepping up to transform in the face of digital disruption. I'd like to spend my last few minutes with one real-world example that brings a lot of this together, and truly with life-saving impact.
How many times do you think you can solve a problem which is going to allow a clinician to now save a life?
I think the challenge all of us physicians are dealing with is data overload. I probably look at over 100,000 images in a day, and that's just going to get worse.
What if it was possible for some computer program to look at these images with them and automatically flag images that might deserve better attention?
Chris on the surface seems pretty simple, but underneath, Chris has a lot going on.
In the past year, I've seen Chris form a community in a space that's usually dominated by proprietary software.
I think Chris could change medicine as we know it today.
All right, with that, I'd like to invite on stage Dr. Ellen Grant from Boston Children's Hospital. Dr. Grant, welcome. Thank you for being here. So Dr. Grant, tell me, who is Chris?
Chris does a lot of work for us, and I think Chris is making me, or has definitely the potential to make me a better doctor. Chris helps us take data from our archives in the hospital and port it to fast backends like the Mass Open Cloud to do rapid data processing and provide it back to me in any format on a desktop, an iPad, or an iPhone. So it basically brings high-end data analysis right to me at the bedside. And that's been a barrier that I struggled with years ago to try to break down. So that's where we started with Chris, is to break that barrier between research that occurred on a timeline of days to weeks to months to clinical practice, which occurs in the timeline of seconds to minutes.
Well, one of the things I found really fascinating about this story, at Red Hat, in case you can't tell, we're really passionate about user-driven innovation, is this is an example of user-driven innovation, not directly at a technology company, but in medicine. So, excuse me. Can you tell us just a little bit about the genesis of Chris and how it got started?
Yeah, Chris got started when I was running a clinical division, and I was very frustrated with not having the latest image analysis tools at my fingertips while I was on clinical practice. And I would have to, on the research side, I could go over and do line code and do the data analysis, but if I'm always over in clinical, I kept forgetting how to do those things. And I wanted to have all those innovations at my fingertips and not have to remember all the computer science, because I'm a physician, not a computer scientist. So I wanted to build a platform that gave me easy access to that back end without having to remember all the details. And so that's what Chris does for us, is allowed me to go into the PACS, grab a data set, send it to a compute back end to do the analysis and bring it back to me without having to worry about where it was or how it got there. That's all involved in the platform, Chris.
And why not just go to a vendor and ask them to write a piece of software for you to do that?
Yeah, we thought about that, and we do a lot of technical innovations, and we always work with the experts. So we wanted to work with, if I'm going to build, say, an optical device, I'm going to work with the optical engineers, or an MR system, I'm going to work with MR engineers. So we wanted to work with people who really knew, or the plumbers, so to speak, of the software industry. So we ended up working with the Mass Open Cloud for the platform and the distributed systems, and Red Hat as the infrastructure that's starting to support Chris. And that's been actually a really incredible journey for us, because writing medical software has not typically been a community process. And that's something that, working with Dan from Red Hat, we learned a lot about how to participate in an open community. And I think our team has grown a lot as a result of that collaboration.
Great. And I know we've talked about in the past that getting this data locked into a proprietary system you may not be able to get out is a real issue. Can you talk about the importance of open and how that's worked in the process?
Yeah, and I think for the medical community, and I find this resonates with other physicians as well too, is that medical data we want to continue to own, and we feel very awkward about giving it to industry. So we would rather have our data sitting in an open cloud like the Mass Open Cloud, where we can have a consortium that oversees the data governance, so that we're not giving our data away to somebody else, but have a platform that we can still keep control of our own data. And I think it's going to be the future, because we're running out of space in the hospital. We generate so much data, and it's just going to get worse, as I was mentioning. All our systems run faster. We get new devices. So the amount of data that we have to filter through is just astronomically increasing. So we need to have resources to store and compute on such large databases.
And so, thinking about where this could go, I mean, this is a classic, feels like an open source project. It started really, really small with a originally modest set of goals, and it's just kind of continued to grow and grow and grow. It's a lot like if you asked Linus Torvald where Linux would be in 1995, you probably wouldn't think it would be where it is now. So if you dream with me a little bit, where do you think this could possibly go in the next 5 years, 10 years?
What I hope it'll do is allow us to break down the silos within the hospital, because to do the best job at what we physicians do, not only do we have to talk and collaborate together as individuals, we have to take the data each community develops and be able to bring it together. So in other words, I need to be able to bring in information from vital monitors, from MR scans, from optical devices, from genetic tests, electronic health record, and be able to analyze on all that data combined. So ideally, this would be a platform that breaks down those information barriers in a hospital and also allows us to collaborate across multiple institutions, because many disorders, you only see a few in each hospital, so we really have to work as teams in the medical community to combine our data together. And also, I'm hoping that, and we even have discussions with people in the developing world, because they have systems to generate or to create data, or say, for example, an MR system. They create data, but they don't have the resources to analyze on it. So this would be a portal for them to participate in this growing data analysis world without having to have the infrastructure there. It'd be a portal into our back end, and we could provide the infrastructure to do the data analysis.
It really is truly amazing to see how it's just continued to grow and expand. It really is. It's a phenomenal story. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. I really do love that story. It's a great example of user-driven innovation, in a different industry than in technology, and recognizing that a clinician's need for real-time information is very different than a researcher's need, in projects that can last weeks and months. And so, rather than trying to get an industry to pivot and change, it's a great opportunity to use a user-driven approach to directly meet those needs. So we still have a long way to go. We have 2 more days of the summit, and as I said yesterday, we're not here to give you all the answers. We're here to convene the conversation. So I hope you will have an opportunity today and tomorrow to meet some new people, to share some ideas. We're really, really excited about what we can all do when we work together. So I hope you found today valuable. We still have a lot more happening on the main stage as well. This afternoon, please join us back for the general session. It's a really amazing lineup. You'll hear from the Women in Open Source Award winners. You'll also hear more about our CoLab program, which is really cool. It's getting middle school girls interested in open source and coding. And so you'll have an opportunity to see some people involved in that. You'll also hear from the Open Source Stories speakers, and including in that, you will see a demo done by a technologist who happens to be 11 years old. So really cool, you don't want to miss that. So I look forward to seeing you then this afternoon. Thank you.